Hello and welcome to another Business Insiders podcast. I'm excited to have you, and I've got a great guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is an ex-military engineer who basically fell into recruitment. Now, I know I've just used those fatal words of recruitment, but bear with me. This guy I met in the gym. We play tennis, and I'm going to say we work out together, but that's probably a little stretch from the truth. But we're definitely in the gym at the same time. And if I was to guess what he did for a job, it would not be recruitment. That's why I've got Craig on the podcast, because I wanted someone that I could trust, I could rely on, and I knew that wasn't going to spin me some spin, because recruitment have that about them, unfortunately. Craig, welcome to the show.
Thanks, mate. Good to be on. Yes, I think there's some good, there's some bad, and there's some bloody ugly in our industry. That's for sure. But there's a few good guys out there trying to and ladies trying to do the right things. That's for sure.
100%. And for me, that's where I got to when I was thinking about getting someone on that was in recruitment that could help. And I was like, who do I know in recruitment? I didn't know anyone. And then I'm talking to you one day, and you're like, I'm in recruitment. And it's not in a million years would I have guessed that you were in recruitment. And
Well, thank you. Thank
I,
you.
well, depending on whether you might think that's an insult rather than a compliment. So,
No, I don't.
um, but the one thing I did pick up there is that you're an ex-military engineer. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough at the age of 16 and a half, 17, that I knew everything. So I didn't need to finish my college course because there was nothing that anybody could teach me at that point. Um, and I marched into the front room and told my parents that I was going to join the army. I mean, they were delighted. But that started the best part of 10 years as a Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineer. I used to work on big boys' toys, so Challenger 2, Warrior, armoured infantry kit and equipment, and did that until I met my wife. But it was a good grounding. I grew up really, really quickly, and I think if there's something that it's taught me, and one of the sort of the biggest transferable skills is around discipline and kind of having quite a disciplined approach to things. And I think that's the military and the engineer in me.
Do you know what? That piece where you said when I was 16 and I knew everything. Every parent with a teenager is going, "Well, that sounds like my kids right now," because that's
They were
exactly
honest. It was them as well, Andy. That's the thing. It was them as well. But
yeah.
yeah. That was my transition really. My early first career was that bit that I learned about the world. I deployed on tour, did some really exciting things, and thoroughly enjoyed it while I did it.
Yeah, I have to say that I think there's a lot that the countries, not necessarily our country, but where we all used to have to go and serve 2 years. That process of where we don't have to go and serve 2 years, you can decide whether that's right or wrong. Actually, I think that's wrong. I think the ability that everyone should go and do it was 2 years, wasn't it? I think I'm sure it was 2 years, but
Yeah, national service. Yeah,
yeah, that whole piece, 2 years of discipline, structure, learn how to march, do as you're told, and a lot of us, and me included, could definitely do with that sometimes.
yeah, and it's given me the habit of getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning and going to the gym before work. Right, so we wouldn't have met. But yeah, interestingly, I have, and we won't get into it today, but I've got some quite strong opinions on that because do you want somebody who's forced to serve alongside you in an operation? No, but there are plenty of jobs that people can do outside of teeth arms, if you like, that can support. And in Germany and France, as well as European countries, that could be anything from like ambulance driving, street
Mm.
cleaning. You know, there are things you could do in service of your country that would support it and help it and provide some interesting disciplines along the way. Definitely.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Do you want someone fighting with you? Don't really want to be there. I 100% buy into that. But I do agree that there's so many. Everyone thinks that I'm going to join the army. I'm going to stand on the front line shooting. Well, let's be honest. We're pretty much over those days. I mean, I know that still happens, and we still need those attack forces. But I mean, we ain't got a front line anymore, like
No,
to that level.
well, it's a
Things have
very
changed.
different front line than it was beforehand. But yeah, I think there's merit in it, and we all probably know a stroppy teenager or two that could do with it. That's for sure.
Yeah,
But
definitely. Let's.
I did it of my own free will and volition.
Yeah, well, good for you. Well, thank you very much for your service. It's very much appreciated. I have to say that's one thing I've learned from the Americans. You get in a lift with someone who's serving in their uniform. An American, this is in the States, an American will literally say to them, "Hey, thanks for your service." In this
Yeah,
country, we wouldn't say anything to them. We would just ignore them. And so I've sort of learnt that from them to say, "Hey, genuinely, thank you for your service because without you, it's
I
tough."
think it's getting better actually. There's because I think that's drip fed in. We now have Armed Forces Week. We have reservist week. So we have several different kind of weeks, days, and things that are designed for armed forces. And there's a big push as well now around the Armed Forces Covenant. So there's businesses now that sign up to the Armed Service Covenant. We're one of those, obviously with my background, which effectively says when you are recruiting, when you're hiring, when you're looking to bring staff into your business, you will assess military, ex-military, veterans, their spouses, their siblings, in the same way that you would assess normal people and not prejudice against them because they're in the military and may move around and that sort of stuff. So there's lots being done in the world today to try and make military forces more accessible, um, and sort of try and get that transition from military into civistry easier or less challenging, should I say, than it has been in the past.
I have to say though, but for as an employer, I, I mean, I've not thought about you pushing them away. I've thought about actually how can we get them in because the discipline, the things you talked about, I'd welcome them to be knocking on the door, wanting to come and work for us.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's people like you who go, yeah, I get it. I've had enough exposure to military people to know that I quite like them and they could bring something. But I have to say, there is this huge portion of the society out there that thinks everybody in the military walks around like Windsor Davis, and you're probably old enough to get that, and shouts at everyone with a stick and you horrible lots, and that's how everybody from the military talks, which of course they don't. But depends what your exposure is to military life, I guess.
Yeah, they walk in with a pay stick. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could
Yeah,
just
yes, yeah, yeah.
come for an interview with a pay stick under their arm. I'm not sure that's really going to work these days.
And all they
Okay,
do is scream and shout.
yeah. So, how did you get into recruitment? How did that, how did that even happen?
Yeah, so, it's it's an interesting story actually. So my wife was working for a bank. One of her best friends, I'd met her husband at a few social engagements. We'd enjoyed a beverage or two together over the years, and he when I was leaving the military, I phoned him and said, I need to get a job. I've got 3 months paid leave to find a job. Shall I go and see one of your consultants? He said, I'll phone you this evening. He phoned me and said, instead of going to see one, do you want to be one? Now, I had no idea what it meant. I had no idea what being a recruiter was all about or anything. He said, look, come in. I'll come out of the process, but I'll put you in front of the manager who's hiring. But you're a decent lad, you're hardworking, you're good at communications, you get people. I've seen you engage with people and in rooms and stuff. We've got a challenge. He said, come out, give me 6 months. If you like it, stay. If you don't, I'll write you the best reference you've ever had, and you go on your way. But you would have transitioned from military into civistry. You'll know how to write a good CV. You'd have networked really well. You might have more of an idea of what you want to do. And that was 20 years ago.
Amazing, amazing. All from a network,
Oh,
essentially.
and it's so I still do quite a bit of work. You might have seen on my profile. I've got a bit of a business called, well, it's not a business because it's pro bono, Career Force, and effectively offering career guidance and consultation for veterans. And the biggest thing I harp on about is network. They don't realize it at the moment because in the military, you don't call it networking, you just call it talking to people. All right.
Yeah.
But that piece, that network, those guys that have left the regiment 5, 10, 15 years ago, people your wife's husband's partner's boss, all those people that that you can network with and find out what life is like. So Yeah, network is key, and it's key in today's job market, right? We did some research earlier this year. We took 220 executives that had found a role in the last 12 months, and 35% of them found their role through their own network. 35%, you know?
Is that sort of they've seen a job on LinkedIn posted by someone or someone said, "Hey, come and get a job with us" type approach?
Predominantly the second, right? So the first one normally falls into recruiters,
Yep.
but ultimately, if you're looking for a job at the moment, you are leaning on your network as much as possible to make them or help them understand that you're available, that you're looking and what you want to do.
Yep.
Because what you've got to remember is to your network, you're a tried and tested entity that they know about. Whereas if they go through and they have to use a recruiter to hire, there's a cost associated with it. You might not be known to that company or all those sorts of things. So yeah, your network is just key, right? And
Yeah.
this and the same when you want to bring people into your organization, right? Before you, and we can talk about this in a minute, but before you start going down the route of, right, I'm going to bring somebody in, am I going to stick up an advert? And we'll talk about the pros and cons of that. Or am I going to engage with a consultancy to help me find somebody? Check your own bloody network, because it's amazing. It,
Yep.
Network is, it's just a powerful thing, right?
Yeah, nice. Okay. Well, look, so we know you're in recruitment. Who do you currently serve? Before we get into the nitty gritty, just for people listening to sort of frame what we're going to talk about. Yes, we're going to talk about recruitment, but who do you
Yeah,
currently serve, look after?
yeah, okay. Gotcha. So I'm part of, or executive heads is the businesses I run, and we're part of the heads resourcing group. So we've got, you probably see by the wall behind me, an HR heads business, procurement heads business that do that. And I focus on executive heads. So I run that as part of the board. Typically, we work with SME, mid cap businesses, very often owner founder led, that are looking to grow or scale. Very often they've got an event on the horizon. It might be 3, 4, 5 years off, but they're starting to think, we've got to a size now. What's our next step to get to that point where we are interesting enough for private equity, a management buyout, whatever that might look like, that will get us the multiple that we need to be happy to sell. So typically those kind of SME mid-cap businesses. And we've got a number of what we call practices in our business. So we've got consumer, which looks after retail and consumer-led brands. We've got industrial, which is engineering, manufacturing type stuff, pharmaceuticals and life sciences. We've got a public sector brand, and we've got a financial and professional services practice. So from
Yep.
each of our brands, we've got somebody in there doing that kind of recruitment in that. So it enables our guys to be a bit kind of inch wide, mile deep in terms of, because you'll appreciate running a business in the retail consumer space could be very different from running it in a engineering and manufacturing space.
Yeah. Okay, nice. I like what you talked there about, businesses that are scaling founders. That's essentially this podcast is all about helping business owners to scale. So great news. We got the right person, everybody. Let's talk about recruitment then. And I know you've got a couple of different sort of models and frameworks that you use.
Yeah,
To sort of work out recruitment and recruiting people and finding the best talent. Running a business that's turning over between 1 and 3 million can feel like a solitary journey. But what if you could tap into a supportive community dedicated to helping you overcome obstacles and consistently scale? Our free STEMS community is just that, a space where business leaders like you come together for practical advice, support, and invaluable insights. It's positive, friendly, and designed exclusively to help you confidently navigate your next growth milestone. Join us today, completely free, and let's scale together. Let's start with the executive DNA model. So,
yeah,
what,
okay.
what is that?
So that's our 4-stage process that takes you from never done this before, really uncertain about life, to actually we've got someone and we've retained them for a strong amount, decent amount, at least 12 months in the business, and they're really set up for success, right?
Yeah.
So that's it. And it starts, and I think the biggest piece, the base level is strategy, right? So we are talking to customers or potential clients at this point without any obligation, but we're talking to them about, right, what's the strategy for this? What are our business goals? Right. So before we even think about hiring an X or a Y, what are our business goals? And fundamentally, what are the biggest challenges we've got and perceive that are going to come along that this person can help us to negotiate or solve? That's
So
really, really, really important.
So if I understand that, so you're thinking of, okay, where are we with our business plan for the next 12 to 18 months, let's say, and what's the key hire we need in order to get us to the next step in the journey, and
Yeah,
using that strategy to find the right person that's going to open, let's call it open the right doors, but to solve the problem, open the doors, or get the business to that 10 million to 15 million mark, or you know,
yeah,
25 million to 40 million mark. Is that what we're talking about here?
yeah. But what we're talking about is being very clear about what we are trying to do and what our challenges are getting there. And then there's some other points in that as well, right? Which is about, in that case, what's our employer's value proposition, right? So we use the mnemonic VM squared. So what's our vision? What's our mission? What are our values? And what are our milestones to getting to that goal? And that helps you be able to articulate that to these potential candidates, right? So we do that, and then we do another huge piece around behavioral alignment. So let me give you an example. And very often, owners, founders, when they get to this point, they go, right, we're X big at the moment. Typically, what I see, and I'm not criticizing anybody for this, what they then do at that point is go, I don't like doing that bit, and that bit in my job. They're the bits I'm going to outsource because I'm going to focus on the bits I'm really good at, and I'm going to carry on with the client work and helping to grow in the sales part of our business because I enjoy it and I'm good at it. So I'm going to do that. Actually, finance is a real challenge for us, or operations is a real challenge for us. It's not my forte, so I'm going to hire somebody to do that. But in order for you to be able to do it, you've got to know your base point and where you're starting from and where you want to go to be able to articulate that. And that's where your process and your STEMS framework falls really well into this, because then if you've got something like that in place, when you've invited these people in and you want to talk to them, you can really coherently talk to them and describe where the business is going. And that's quite exciting for people if you can draw them into that space. So
Yeah, I've got
step
that.
step one in strategy is really, it's all about setting yourself up, having that real firm foundation before you then start going to that next level and engaging with the candidates that you want to engage with.
I think I mean, I love that. I think getting the best talent, they want to know where the business is now, where it's going, what's exciting to work there, and why come work there. Because if it's just like you can come and just work here like any other job, you're just going to get any old candidate,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
and the best. It's quite interesting because I talk to our consultants here, and they're like, "Oh, this is really difficult finding people." Or persuading them that this is a really great opportunity. I'm like, good, because the best people, the best candidates are really discerning about their careers, and they're not going to move just because they saw an advert on Indeed. And that's a story for in a minute. But they're not. They're really discerning about where they want to go and what that looks like and their role that they play in it. And another interesting maybe anecdote is I met up with a managing director that we placed into another business that was growing a couple of weeks ago for a pint and a pie and a catch up. I said, "What's the last 12 months been like?" And he said, "It's been, it's been outrageous. We've had make a load of redundancies. We've had to restructure the business. We've had to refinance the business. We've had to pull out of some suppliers. It's been a real. I said, I hope that's been okay. He said, Craig, I'm fine about it. He said, because when I came and met you for the first time, that's what you described. When I met the owners, we knew this was on the card. So I walked into it, eyes open, and it was an exciting and interesting challenge. And actually, it's grown me as an individual. What people find really, really frustrating is when you say, come and join our business. It's all roses and buttercups and sweetness and light, and it's all going to be fantastic. And they're walking into a storm, right? They don't mind as long as you've been really honest. So again, what are those challenges? The challenges are really tough to grow the next 5 million, and we're going to have to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
People don't mind as long as you're open and honest, transparent with them about how challenging it's going to be. So that's why I'm really trying to anchor people back to what are those challenges, because as well, if we can find people that are good, that have already solved those challenges in other businesses, that's going to be the differentiator between one ops director and the next ops director.
Nice. Okay. Brilliant.
Potential.
So if we've got the strategy, what's the next step?
Engagement. That's a really important part, right? Because what we want to do is go and engage with the best candidates. So there is a diagram on our website, and they can find it on our website. But essentially, what we know is that if you take any given market, and I'll use ops directors as the example again, we know, broadly speaking, about 15% of that market will be unavailable, right? They might be beginning of tenure, end of tenure, really happy in what they do. Imagine that. Just not able to entice them into a process. And interestingly, the better they are, the more likely their current company is going to offer them LTIPs, equity, some sort of EMI scheme, something, a golden handcuff that keeps them in the business for the next few years.
Yeah.
So again, that's something that people have to really think about when they're bringing somebody into their organization. What do we want to be able to offer this person? What can we offer them that's going to incentivize them to stay and knock it out the park? But we know 15% you won't entice into it. Now, conversely, we know you're probably going to get about 15% of people who are actively searching on the job market. And again, the further up that availability scale you go, or towards the competency end of it, the less people there are, right? Because good people typically, less redundancy, perhaps they've relocated, etc. Good people aren't looking for jobs because they're working bloody hard, they're really engaged in their company, they're doing all the right things. They don't have time to look for a new job most of the time, or they've got this LTIPs or something that's keeping them engaged. So if your strategy is, I tell you what, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to put an advert on LinkedIn, or I'm going to put an advert on Indeed or Monster or one of those, for senior level, very niche candidates, I think you'll struggle. You will have to kiss a lot of frogs to find somebody who's really, really good in that pool.
Interesting. The question in my head is this is great for senior level jobs. But we don't necessarily need to do that for every single job within the business. I mean, you'd find the best candidates, right, from a recruitment perspective. But
Yep.
Some of our administration roles, we don't do that. But for the senior roles, we do.
What you do it, what you advertise the senior roles and not.
No. The admin roles we would just put on Indeed.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
senior roles, we would use someone. So I think people listening to this, don't feel you've got to do this for every single employee that goes. Although Craig would love you to, the reality is you don't need to do that, and Craig will say that too.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. There are roles and levels where we're saying to people, look, okay, let's do the strategy piece, and from that, we'll write some adverts for you, we'll buy some advertising for you, we'll push all those people in, and that's all you need to do. And the cost to that is minimal, but you'll get some people and that'll be okay. We're talking about critical roles for your organization that are taking you from 5-6 million to 20 million, right?
Yeah.
That's worth investing to get the right people. Aside from that, so then what you end up with is this portion in the middle who aren't available or aren't unavailable. They're what we call the passive candidates. And what we have to do is pitch a message to those candidates, those passive candidates, get in front of them and say, hey, look at this incredible opportunity. And we need to entice them into that process. And that's where, going back to that employer's value proposition, that we're really honing that message. And we've had to do a lot of things differently over the last couple of years to get in front of them. One thing that's proven to be really good at the moment is around, we're videoing and interviewing our clients about what's happening in their business, what makes it exciting, and then using an invite only video channel and sending that out to several people that we're handpicking and engaging with, to say, hey, come and have a conversation and look how good this opportunity is. That's because
Nice.
video content is all the rage. Because the other thing people have to realize is, if they're going to advertise, brilliant, but what you have to have is the resource to be able to manage it properly. So I know that if I put up, we've just recently done a head of transformation role for a scaling organization, yeah, and we wanted to go out to market. We wanted to see and the client was in agreement that we were going to do something, because we wanted to talk about the brand. We had 100 applications in 24 hours. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so what that now, not all 100 applications are right. far from it, but my point is, you will get a lot. Now, what you have to be able to do is go back to all of those people and say thank you, no thank you because of this reason, no thank you because of that. So if you can't afford to do that, the risk you run is you get a load of people that are associating being ghosted, not hearing back from you, lack of courtesy with your brand. Your target in hiring should be to hire one person and create a handful of raving advocates about your business who go, didn't get that job, but the process was so good. The interview process was so good. The company sounds so good. Whenever they hire in the future, I want to be involved in it. And when I go down the pub on Friday, I'm going to tell everyone that I speak to about this amazing interview process that I was part of. And you should go and buy their product, because what they're doing is incredible.
I've never looked at it like that, but I think it's an amazing way of looking at it. You're looking to employ one and create raving fans with the others.
Yeah, because what a lot of businesses do is they hire one person and cheese a load of people. my 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 job is like one of the most unpopular jobs in the world, because effectively what I do is I go out and I invite 50 people to a disco. I then tell 20 people where it is, and then I let one in the door. Right? Because we'll go out and approach 50 people, 30 of them won't even make it to the kind of internal interview with me, and then only one person gets the job anyway. So it's like you feel like a bouncer not half the time, turning people away. But if we do it in the right way, where they feel valued, they feel like they've been communicated with, you've been transparent with them throughout, they can handle that. And hopefully what you've done is created these people who really like the business.
Nice. Love that. All right. So we've got strategy engagement. What's the next step?
Next bit is assessment, right? So assessment is about, there's a big piece that we do, and I said it in the strategy bit, it's about behavioural alignment. So I'll give you an example. We'll go back to the ops director. We utilise behavioural profiling, right, as part of it. And there's a lot of people at this point that roll the eyes and go, oh, behavioural profiling. And my experience is very often when people do that, it's because it's not been used properly when they've used it in the past. So what we do with our clients is we work with them really in the early stages and go, right, for the ops director in this role, for this role in this business at this time, what are the behaviours that we're looking for? And we measure them, right? And we measure them not only from one, but 3 or 4 stakeholders around the organisation. Sometimes clients will ask me to give an input and an opinion on that as well, as to what good should look like. Because not all ops directors are the same, right? There's different and have different behaviors, and you need to find the one that have the right skills, the experience, and have got those results.
Yeah.
But they've got to have the right attitudes and behaviors, the right cognitive capability, and the right habits, because that's more likely to be a predictor of future success than purely the stuff that's happened in the past, which is the experience and the results, right?
Yeah.
So when we're assessing people on behalf of our clients, we're bringing them in, we're having a full interview, but we would have also done some behavioral profiling, and then we're matching to see that those behaviors are evident in their career and their attitudes, etc. So that when we go back to the client,
Yep.
we're saying to them, yes, they've got the skills, the experiences, but they've also got the right attitudes, behaviors. Because one of the things that I see go wrong is when people do this, what they do is they do one of a couple of things. They go throughout the process, then they get to the last candidate or last two candidates, and they go, yeah, we really like them. Let's do a behavioural profile on them. The results will come back, and what they're then looking at is who was the most authentic to what their profile shows to how they interviewed,
Yep.
right? But that might not be what you need in your business at the moment. So that is really, really important. And I think you've got to measure it, because the amount of people that I've worked with over the years who say, "Don't you worry, I'll know good. I'll know good when I see him. As soon as I see him, I'll know it." And they'll tell you about the last hire they made that was absolutely phenomenal. And what about the one before that? Oh no, they weren't very good. And the one before that? Oh no, they didn't last very long. And when you boil it down to why people didn't work out, more often than not, it's behavioural rather than experience, or rather than skills. Because if it's experience, you give it to them, and if it's skill, you can teach them. But you cannot change those behaviours. So people rely a little bit, and I know you did a post not so long ago about relying on gut.
Mm.
People kid themselves a lot of the time that they'll make a gut decision and it will be absolutely right, but you've got to back it up with some data.
I mean, that gut thing for me is the problem with gut instinct is it's normally someone like you. And the last thing you need as a business owner is more people like you in the business.
You got it.
Because you
Yeah.
know the reality is, as a business owner, you have a certain set of skills, and the behavioral piece is about finding people that, for me, I put the behavior piece and values to align those pieces together. But the behavioral piece is, you need someone who's detailed, because what's going to happen is, let's take finance as a great example. You talked about finance earlier.
Yeah.
You're going to recruit a finance director, and you're going to get 10 of them in the room. And if you're an entrepreneur that's a little bit like me, every single one of them is going to frigging bore you. And then what happens is you're like, I don't get a very good gut feeling about any of these. Well, you won't, because they're not like you.
Thankfully, I mean, our finance controller knows that if I need to do anything, she books a room, preferably one with a lock, takes my phone away from me, and goes, right, we're having a conversation about, because exactly, because I'm up here, and now we're doing some
Yep.
real detailed focus work, and I've got to bring that mindset to it. But
Yep.
that creates the yin to the yang, doesn't it? Now, just because somebody's behaviours are different doesn't mean their values aren't. And again, one of the common misconceptions, I think, is people talk about behavioural alignment and value alignment. You can have very different behaviours but the same values.
Yep.
You can still work from the same value set. And again, the other misconception sometimes is people talk about cultural analysis or cultural testing. Actually, if somebody's got the right behaviors, what you find is, if they've got the right behaviors, they'll be successful in their role. If they're successful in their role, typically they'll be a good cultural fit for the business.
Yep.
It's a bit of a broad sweeping statement, but I think it's
So you're saying if it's got good behavior, good culture will follow.
I believe, again, we'll use the finance. If somebody's good at finance, good at what they're doing, they've bought into your vision, they've bought into your values, they know where the business is going, they're good at what they do,
Yeah.
right? They'll get the culture and they'll get it and they'll align to it. It's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is behaviors and culture are two different things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because
No.
again, you've got sales, you've got finance, you've got ops, you've got market different behaviors going on there, but culturally they all fit and work together.
That
And
and
I
that, and
think,
that for me is the biggest one. But that does come down to gut. You end up with a strong salesperson as an owner, and you tend to find that all the people in the office are like all these like exciting people and everything else, which means normally the product's crap because no one's focusing on the product because they're all focusing on sales and marketing and they don't care about the product. It's not they don't care about it; they're just not good enough to deal with the detail of it because
yeah,
they're all like the business, the owner, because they've
yeah.
recruited solely on like gut feel. That don't work.
But it's like when you've got a proposal and a tender to put out. Everyone's really excited in sales about it until we actually have to put pen to paper and write a proposal. It's like, oh, that's detail driven and time consuming and boring. I'd rather go and speak to 10 other people. Thank you very much. So you kind
Yes.
of got to have that behavior somewhere in the business that can do that detail orientated work. And it is really important. I think the other thing about measuring behaviors, as you've just said there, right? If you're bringing somebody into a finance role, getting the key stakeholders aligned about and agreed on what behaviors are right
Yep.
means that when you come to that post-interview wash down and go, right, what did everyone think? Very often you get the one outlier who goes, no, I didn't like him, and it was a sales role and the CFO's just interviewed him. Why
Yep.
not? Yeah, they weren't very detail orientated, and that you go, no, but remember when we did the benchmark, that's what we all agreed on, and we agreed we didn't need somebody really detail orientated. We needed somebody very social and gregarious. So that's right, and that's why you didn't like them. But can you see that's right for the business? Yeah, I can. Good, right, okay. So a bit of tough love. So you
Yep.
agreed that that's okay, and we just need to get our heads around the fact that they're not going to be overly analytical.
Ready to confidently scale your business even further? Join our weekly virtual STEMS event, designed specifically for business owners with revenues between 1 and 3 million. Each week, we break down key elements of our proven STEMS philosophy, providing actionable training, supportive insights, and expert guidance you can immediately apply. It's a welcoming environment entirely focused on empowering you to grow sustainably and successfully. Reserve your spot at our next event. It's your opportunity to unlock your next level of business success. Link below. So we got strategy engagement assessment.
Yeah, and then the final bit is about retaining talent, right? Why would you invest lots of money to bring somebody into your business? If you're bringing them into your senior leadership team, they're probably going to be one of the most um, their salary is probably going to be one of the highest in the business, alongside the owner or the founder, or But so let's be really honest about that. Why would you do that and not worry about retaining them, right? Because there's loads of stats, and again on our website, we've got something called the cost of a bad hire, and it's amazing, right? If you make a hire, senior hire, and it doesn't work out, there's loads of stats around going, it's 3 times, 4 times salary, etc., etc. Be under no illusion, it's probably closer to 5 or 6, right? When you start to take into consideration, so you've got direct costs, which are their salary, their training costs, their NI, their pension, the cost to get them set up on the EMI scheme, all of that stuff, right? That's your direct cost. Then when you start to look at the indirect costs. So what's that done as your reputation as a leader in the business, that you've staked your claim on somebody and they haven't worked out? What about the missed business opportunities that person who wasn't very good has lost you, or didn't get over the line, or we've just lost it because now we haven't got the research. So you've got to onboard people properly, right? And be really, really thorough. So we have a 90-day coaching program. So we've got some independent coaches that we work with, and effectively they work with the hiring manager, be it the MD, the founder, whoever, and the individual over a course of 90 days to help them come into the business. Because especially when you're going into a leadership role, it can be a lonely old place, can't it? Leadership.
Yep.
When you come in, you don't want to be the guy who's seen as moaning or whinging or coming up with problems. So by having an independent coach that they can use as a sounding board and say, hey, got this challenge, this is happening in the business, this is what, just give them that independent sounding board. And then that coach goes, great, how's that going to land? Have you thought about X? Have you thought about Y? What are you going to do? Is a really good way of helping them to get to that point that when they go back and go, right, guys, this is the challenge, these are the solutions, this is my recommendation for you. So having that coach aligned with them, but also aligned with the owner, going, right, what do you want to happen in the first 90 days? What does that look like? What have they got to have achieved to just try and help keep them on course over that first 90 days? It's remarkable. We all go through this 90-day dip, right? We start on day one, week one of the business. Our motivation's high, our performance is high. The commute was a bit more difficult than I realised. I've just met that difficult stakeholder. The systems aren't as good as what we wanted. So we're going to that dip. Now, if you've got someone in your business to coach them out of it and it comes out, you'll get that slump will become a dip and they'll come back out of it and get back to that performance level. All too often, I interview people and you go, when did you know it wasn't the right role for you? After about first 3 months, really. But you've been there 2 years. Yeah, I just didn't want to have something bad looking on my CV. So you've stayed working in a company you're not really happy with for 2 years because you didn't want it to look bad on your. Think how that person is performing in your organisation.
Yeah.
They're not performing to their top.
That's the problem. It's the performance. When you're talking about the loss to the business, we had
Yeah,
someone who was head of a department that we brought in, and she lost us a 300 grand a month contract. So almost 4 million quid's worth of work from one bad hire. To put that
yeah,
into perspective in one business, like
yeah,
that's a lot of money that we threw out because of one bad hire.
yeah.
So you can feel pretty sick about that for a while, but you get
See,
over it pretty quick.
but the other thing is, I think the other thing about retaining good senior, what you'll find is if you can retain good senior talent in your organisation and
Yep.
they're good senior talent, right? Typically, that'll have a knock-on effect to retention levels further down the tree because they're engaging their staff, they're getting people motivated and excited around the opportunity. They're probably a different skill set from you, so they're giving the team something else that they need. It will have a significant knock-on effect to your strategy. And look, we do a coaching program, right? But you might have somebody in your business who's really good at coaching, so you can do that. But there are so many other little wins that you have for people around onboarding them. So, I said before, your program, your STEMS framework, right? If people can
Yeah.
come in and there is a framework that they can plug into to know where the business is, where it's going, how it's operating, etc. Brilliant, right? So
Yeah.
that's a massive tick in the box. Even silly things like make sure their IT and tech and everything is set up on their day one when they walk into the office.
Yeah.
We
Yeah. That whole they arrive and they're like, "Oh, we didn't realize you're arriving so early, and your laptop's not quite ready yet." And yeah, we've seen all that in the past.
honestly, it's just,
It's horrible.
I'm not gonna lie, we did it. We had times when we didn't do it years ago, when we didn't do it. Now we make sure, you make a real song and dance of it, and their equipment's all on their desk, their phones charged, you know, there's normally some welcome gifts on their desk as well. So they walk in, first impression, bang. We're talking about, are they going out for lunch with the team in the first week? Are they engaging with people? There's so many small wins you can have during that onboarding period. But for me, the crucial thing is about that transfer of information. If
Yeah.
you can't draw down that information and give it to somebody in a really succinct way, when they start in the first week in the organization, you're going to lose time because they are having to go and find that information and work it out themselves. So you can really, really help people by having that information freely and readily available.
Amazing. So we got the executive DNA model, 4 steps, strategy, identifying what you're going to hire and making sure it's right for the business and where you're trying to get to. 2, engagement, engage with the right people that are in the passive candidate stage. 3, assessment, assess the product, assess it and do all those bits. And then lastly, retain it and then onboard them over that 90-day period.
Yeah.
Banging. Okay,
I should have
wonderful.
said that. Should have said that half an hour ago.
No. Well, I'm just summarising. That is the summary.
Yeah.
So, okay, I love that. So, one of the other things you talked about there was employee value proposition. Talk me through what you mean by that.
So it's amazing, right? When we interview candidates, we expect them to be able to tell them what we would call as their employee value proposition, what they're good at, what they do, like, why they should hire. But so many companies forget to talk about their employer's value proposition. What makes us a good company? Yeah. What makes us a good company? And as I said to you before, that VM squared, that what's the vision for the business? Our vision is to be the number one logistics third party company, on the South Coast, for instance. What's our mission? Well, our mission is to do it in a sustainable way. Our mission is about sustainable logistics and doing, that's our mission, and we want to be able to do it. What are our values? You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to talk about your values, and what you have to be able to demonstrate to be really appealing to somebody walking in your door is, how do your values affect your decision making? Are they just some words on the wall in reception, yeah, or in your employee handbook that no one ever sees again? Or can you demonstrate your values? Yeah, because we can demonstrate one of ours is rewarding relationships. We can demonstrate that by how we've done a lot of value add work for a client. We can demonstrate it by how we've offered clients that have rewarded our relationship by giving them a reduced fee structure over a period of time. We can demonstrate it to anybody who walks into our business, because it's a huge telltale sign if a candidate says, what does that value mean to you in your organization? What's your biggest frustration about that value? And you can't answer it, because you will indefinitely ask candidates what are their innate personal values.
Yep.
And they're going to ask you. And again, I said about senior candidates being discerning about their careers. They're going to ask you questions, and it's a two-way street. These are not fresh grads going, I just need a job, I need a job, I need a job. They're going, I've got a great job over here, thanks very much. It's really good. Now, Craig's enticed me into this process, but you've now got to you've got to walk the walk as well with that candidate. So it's really 50. And the milestones thing as well, it's really important. So what are our milestones that we need to hit for us to be successful? Where do you play a part in that? How can you help us to deliver those? Because again, they just want to know that you've thought about it, that it's right. I mean, interesting. We had a chief commercial officer role for a client of ours up in Manchester. 2 candidates. The candidate who got the job had done enough research about the milestones that the client had thought about and where the goals they wanted to hit. And he challenged them really hard and said, we might not be able to hit these, but for these reasons. And actually, the average market in your sector is 5% growth over year on year of it. And actually, you're predicting 12 based on this. So they adjusted their milestones and gave that candidate the job, because he'd obviously had the nous to work out that those milestones might not be achievable.
Yep.
That's not to say he was negative, because he said we might, but you have to appreciate what's happening in your industry at the moment. So,
Isn't
yeah,
it? That I used to. I mean, when I used to go to interviews. I mean, we're going back a long time. I haven't been to an interview for many years, but I remember that I'd go to an interview, my first couple of interviews, and they'd say, "Have you got any questions for us?" And I'd be like, "No, no, 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 no." And then I was looking for a sales job many years later, and I went to see a recruitment agency to go and get a job. And the lady there, and we're going back to 1990 something, and she said to me, "What do you do when they ask you, have you got any questions for us?" I said, "Well, I've normally forgotten what questions I've got." She said, "Well, just write them down then." So every interview I went to after that, I had a notebook full of questions. So when they said, "Have you got any questions?" I like get this notebook, and I'm, "Oh yeah, I have actually. I've got all these questions," and then they look at you like, "Oh my god, this guy's about to interrogate us," because you want to make sure you're going to work for the right people.
you should be. And I have to say, it's a pet peeve of mine. If anybody, if I'm interviewing anybody on behalf of one of our clients or for our business, a pet peeve, no, got no questions, or the ultimate blag, I think we've covered everything. That's a lie. Like,
Yeah,
show me the questions you wanted. Show me that you thought about this before coming into. I think it's a really weak. If nothing else, I always say there's probably a few questions. What will good look like in 12 months
yeah,
that will make you phone up Craig and go, he was the best hire we've ever made? Because when you ask that in an interview, they are basically going to tell you the roadmap of what they want you to do in 12 months, and psychologically they are associating you with that success.
yeah.
Ask the person who's interviewing what excites them about the business.
Yeah.
Come on, it's a weak one. So you've got to ask some decent questions, but we're getting into kind of candidate coaching mode as well at the moment. But yeah, there's loads you can do.
So if you're a business owner, you're looking for your first senior hires. That you're sort of because I talk a lot about about business owner extracting themselves from the business, bringing in a senior leadership team that can run the business without them being there, right? So
Yeah,
that is exactly who you're supporting and helping. Those sort of hires of that, chief operating officers and you know,
yeah,
you can call it all the titles, director of operations or vice president of operations if you're in the bloody states. You can call it whatever you like, but it's basically someone that gets shit done when you're not there. Um, they're sort of the people you're looking for, right? So you're supporting people with those. If people are thinking about that, why would they use an agency rather than just
Ooh,
going out to LinkedIn I mean, actually, I'm going to reframe that rather than just sticking it on Indeed. And the reason I just reframe it, just for people listening, is if you can put a post out saying, "Hey, I'm trying to look for a chief operating officer" on your LinkedIn, and you get a load of people come in, then I'm going to say, Craig, sorry, but you should do that to generate from your network first.
yeah.
But uh, why should they not use Indeed and really focus on an agency? Because we've had some great wins from agencies, so which is why I'm sort of pro. But
Yeah,
why
okay.
should they? Like not? And this isn't just. This is really clear. This isn't a sales pitch. This is just why you should when you should use an agency
Yeah.
over just sticking an advert on Indeed.
So I'd say a couple of things. It's not a sales pitch for us, but it's about. I would change the word agency for consultancy, and that is your answer, right? Consultancy, right? So a good consultant, whether it's me or somebody else, is going to bring value to your world far above and beyond just this one hire, right? So it's about value. It's about, interestingly, so you might have somebody who's doing internal talent, and what we find is that percentage wise, when we reach out to an audience, percentage wise, so if you reached out to 100 and I reached out to 100, the likelihood is I would probably get a bigger response, because when you reach out, they know it's your company and they don't know enough about your company at the moment, so they're going to go thanks but no thanks, right? Whereas when we do it, we could be representing anybody, and what they should know is that we will be transparent. So we'll tell you that there's this great opportunity over here. This is what it's about. This is what they're doing. We're very clear about what the employer's value proposition is, and I can talk you through it and entice them into that process. Whereas not all the time, but sometimes if it's a company going out to people, and I think the other piece that I would suggest is around that bit that I talked about, resource management, right? If you can reach out to a load of people, just be really, really sure you've got the right resource, maybe some automation, whatever, set up in the background that you can just get back to people and tell them a yes, tell them a no, whatever. So they'd be the things. They'll be about consultation and resource management.
Nice. Wonderful. Well, Craig, we've run out of time. We had a load of other things we were going to get to, but for me, that DNA model, that strategy, engagement, assessment, and retain, is the sort of things that people really need to be thinking about in their own process to start thinking
Yeah.
about how they then start engaging and making those really good executive hires. Craig, if people want to reach out and get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, my big round face is all over LinkedIn, so I'm on there, or via www.executiveheads.co.uk, or my email address is craig.elvin@executiveheads.co.uk. Either way is fine.
And that's it for this week's episode. If you made it this far, I'd love it if you could spend just one moment to go and like and subscribe, because it really, really helps the channel and it gives us the ability to really bring in the best guests we possibly can. Big shout out to our sponsors, Expandly. Thank you very much for sponsoring this episode. It's an international management tool that enables all of your compliance, all of your logistics, and all of your online sales channels to be centrally managed all in one place. So it's easy for you to use, easy for you to expand, and gives you the ability to compete on a much larger scale with the global businesses. My name's Andy, and this was the Business Insider Secrets podcast.